Most people look at a candle and see light. The deep thinker looks at the same candle and sees the nature of impermanence, the relationship between darkness and purpose, the courage it takes to burn completely, in service of illuminating even one small corner of an infinite darkness. And then someone asks them, "What are you thinking about?" And they say, "Nothing," because the real answer is too long, too complicated, too difficult to translate from the language of their inner world into words that won't make people look at them strangely. If you are a deep thinker, you already know this feeling exactly. The constant translation, the constant editing, the constant simplification of a mind that refuses to stay on the surface of anything. Today, I want to go as deep as you do and tell you everything the shallow world never understood about you. If those first words felt like someone finally speaking your language, subscribe to the monk philosophy. Every week we go this deep. Every week we speak this honestly. Now let us continue. In this monastery, we have a saying: the shallow well gives water quickly. The deep well makes you work for it, but the water it gives sustains an entire village. Deep thinkers are deep wells. They do not respond quickly. They do not form opinions casually. They do not move through life at the speed the modern world demands, because they cannot. Their mind takes every idea, every experience, every conversation, and pulls it down, layer by layer, examining what is beneath. And beneath that, neuroscience calls this elaborated processing, the tendency of certain brains to automatically make connections between ideas, between emotions, between experiences that most brains simply do not register. A study from the Journal of Neuroscience found that people who score high in depth of processing show significantly more activity in the areas of the brain associated with empathy, pattern recognition, long-term planning, and creative synthesis. In simple terms, the deep thinker's brain is doing more at every moment than the average brain does in an entire conversation. This is why they seem quiet, not because they have nothing to say, but because what they have to say requires more silence than most conversations allow. But I must speak honestly about the other side, because depth without wisdom becomes its own kind of prison. The deep thinker suffers in ways that are almost impossible to explain to someone who does not experience it. They cannot watch a movie without analyzing it. They cannot have a simple conversation without hearing what was not said. They cannot experience a moment of joy without some part of their mind already anticipating its end. They feel the weight of ideas that most people never carry, the complexity of questions that most people never ask, the loneliness of living in a mind that never rests, in a world that rarely keeps up. The ancient philosopher Heraclitus, one of the deepest thinkers in all of human history, wrote something that has stayed with me for decades. He said, "I searched into myself." 3 words. But a deep thinker reading those words understands immediately the entire lifetime of interior exploration they represent. The deep thinker is always searching into themselves, always asking why, always pulling at the thread, underneath the thread, underneath the thread. And sometimes what they find there is too heavy to carry alone, too complex to share, too real for a world that prefers comfortable surfaces. Let me give you 6 signs that you are a deep thinker, not as a label, but as a recognition. Sign 1, you think about conversations long after they end. Most people finish a conversation and move on immediately. The deep thinker replays it, analyzes what was said, what was meant, what could have been said better, what the other person was really feeling, long after the other person has completely forgotten happened. Sign 2, small talk feels physically exhausting. Not because you are antisocial, but because your mind cannot stay at the surface long enough to find it satisfying. Every shallow conversation feels like being served a single grain of rice when you are deeply hungry. Sign 3, you feel things before you understand them. You walk into a room and sense something before anyone has spoken. You meet someone and know something is wrong before they show any sign of it. Your body processes what your mind is still trying to find words for. Sign 4, you ask why about everything, not to be difficult, not to challenge, but because accepting the surface explanation feels genuinely incomplete, like being given the cover of a book and told that is the whole story. Sign 5, you feel most alive in deep conversation. When someone finally goes there, when a conversation drops below the surface into something real, something true, something that matters, you come alive in a way that small talk never touches. This is not preference. This is need. The deep thinker requires depth the way the body requires water. Sign 6. You've always felt slightly out of place. Not broken, not wrong, just different. Like you arrived in this world tuned to a frequency most people around you are not quite receiving. And you have spent years wondering, is there something wrong with me? Or is there something simply different? I want to tell you now about the gift, because everything I have described, the weight, the loneliness, the exhaustion of depth, is only one side of what you carry. The other side is extraordinary. Deep thinkers change the world, not loudly, not quickly, not in the ways that get immediate attention, but permanently. Every book that ever shifted human consciousness was written by a deep thinker. Every philosophy that gave suffering people a framework to survive their pain came from a deep thinker. Every scientific breakthrough that changed what was possible began in the mind of someone who could not stop asking why. Einstein could not stop thinking about light. Darwin could not stop thinking about variation. Rumi could not stop thinking about love. Lao Tzu could not stop thinking about the nature of all things. None of them were comfortable thinkers. All of them were deep ones. Your depth, the very thing that has sometimes made you feel out of place, is the same thing that makes you capable of understanding people at a level they rarely experience, of creating things that touch something real, of seeing solutions that exist beneath the surface of problems everyone else has given up on. Your mind is not too much. It has simply been in a world that kept asking it to be less. In this monastery, we do not ask our deepest thinkers to be simpler. We ask the world to be deeper. If you are a deep thinker, I want to leave you with one thing. Stop apologizing for the way your mind works. Stop editing yourself for rooms that are not ready for your depth. Stop making yourself smaller so that others feel less measured by your size. Find your people, the ones who do not look away when the conversation goes somewhere real, the ones who lean forward instead of changing the subject, the ones who have also spent their whole lives wondering, why does no one else seem to see what I see? They exist, and when you find them, you'll understand for the first time that your depth was never a flaw. It was always the most beautiful thing about you. Subscribe to the monk philosophy, ancient wisdom for the modern mind. Every week, the monk speaks. Until next time, go deep. The world needs what lives at the bottom of your mind.